Hi there, this is Chris from PC Gamer, and I'm joined by Tom Senior to show you through the Twilight Arbor dungeon of Guild Wars 2. This is a level 50 dungeon that no one's ever seen before. We can show you up to the first boss. Just a note on the video, we had some recording difficulties when we actually got this footage. It was a problem with the machine, not the game itself, so we didn't notice we were recording, but there will be some frame rate slowdown, but we thought you'd like to see this dungeon anyway, so we thought we'd show you the video.
Awesome.
This is me running around in a puddle, waiting for my group to get together to start the dungeon. This is a Sylvari themed dungeon from a little bit later in the game. All of the dungeons in Guild Wars 2 in story mode, you're led by a member of Destiny's Edge, which is this like super hero group.
They're the ones that disband before the start of Guild Wars 2, is that correct?
Yeah.
Back together.
There's a novel where they kind of all come together and then they've kind of disbanded. Ritlock is, and there's one for each race, so Ritlock and actually watch a cutscene.
Good to see you, Logan. Now we can begin.
Conniving vegetable. You never said anything about him being here.
I asked him to attend. I need all of your help to deal with Fowlin.
It sounds like this Fowlin and you have history.
Fowlin is firstborn, like me. She's powerful and dangerous, but she wasn't always that way. When our race was new, we traveled together, her and I. Became close. We found a great darkness. I pulled back from it. Fowlin embraced it. She seduces others to unspeakable acts. I cannot stop her alone. That is why I need you, and Ritlock, and Logan.
I will not work with this human. He'll desert us again.
I did what I had to do.
And you can do this without me. If I see you again, Logan, I will carve you.
So that's Destiny's Edge disbanding again.
Oh man, not again. Can't stay together.
I think the backstory is that Logan, who's the human member, actually abandoned the group during a big fight in the book, and now Ritlock, who hasn't forgiven him for it, has also abandoned. Ritlock being the char member of the group.
Okay.
Played by Steve Blum, brilliant as Grunt from Mass Effect, hence the really voice.
So why are we here? What's the?
So we're tracking down a sort of an evil Sylvari called Fowlin, who, well, the Sylvari are the sort of a really young race. It's interesting. They're kind of Guild Wars to take on elves, but instead of being incredibly old, they're incredibly young, and they've never really encountered things like death or evil before.
So they're the leaf people.
Yeah, they're made of trees.
Yeah.
And so this is all inside one massive tree. This dungeon.
Oh, cool.
Which is hence the Twilight Arbor. Hell of a lot of punching spiders. I'm playing a Guardian, who is a kind of magic-based melee character, really good at putting up shields and things. And I'm playing with 4 members of the Guild Wars 2 QA team who run these dungeons all the time. So we make pretty quick progress.
They know exactly what's coming.
They do this 4 times a day.
Yeah.
So this is how they introduce a mechanic, which is rescuing Sylvari prisoners from these pods. And every time you open one of these pods, there's a chance that the person inside will be a bad guy, right? So it's another mob to fight. Otherwise, there's a chance that there'll be a good guy, in which case you get a buff. It means that if you run out of health, you get all your health back. Wow, that's potentially awesome. Yeah. And the odds of that happening are kind of like a closely guarded secret, but it's this kind of risk-reward thing of freeing the prisoners and getting the awesome buff versus having to fight another mob, which if you're in the middle of a tough fight can be difficult.
So how challenging are these spiders compared to most villains you'd encounter, like at level 50?
We are clearing. It's not. Actually, to be honest, it's not that different from clearing sort of regular event mobs. We're kind of using the same strategies we would be. You can see the markings on the ground for where AOE is coming in.
Yeah.
I'm currently using two-handed sword, which allows me to throw out this AOE. Oh, see, we got we've got 3 saved ones in a row, which is statistically unlikely.
Good go.
And then and a bad guy.
So when does that buff kick in? Is it just when you're...
It's immediate. Well, you get it immediately and your entire team gets it.
Yeah.
Or I think maybe in a radius around the original thing. But the idea is to try and use it as sort of a backup, right? So you kind of like try and stock up on it before you go and take on the boss. Yeah. So these guys individually aren't much of a problem, but we can't fight too many of them at once. The health bars are pretty chunky. I'm in a sort of DPS mode at the moment, so I've got two-handed sword, which allows me to do AoE, and I can still sort of plant down some shields and do some healing stuff, but it's nowhere near as effective as it would be if I had a shield. And that's because we're only fighting sort of one enemy at a time. But even then, you can see I'm losing big chunks of health. We're being supported by Warrior, who's placing that banner down, the banner of defense, which is again helping. And we've also got a Necromancer with us as well, and a Thief.
I guess the thing we always talk about with Guild Wars 2 is that none has, everyone can do a bit of everything. So
yeah.
Do you still take roles within this group, so that if there's someone who's dedicated to supporting you?
It's less cut and dry than other MMOs. Like, it's more about making sure that you can handle different kinds of damage, wherever that comes from. So it may be that you're, for example, firing an arrow through a light field cures poison. So in that sort of situation where a Mesmer and a Ranger can do the job of a healer, you know what I mean? And so it's sort of, you're still kind of achieving the same things in terms of soaking up damage and dealing out damage, but you're achieving it collectively and in a much kind of more broken down way. It's not sort of a one ability that does this one thing. It's kind of the way things kind of interact with each other, which is really cool.
Before you went into this dungeon, did you divvy up, like, say you're going to be the guy who goes in and does AoE DPS? Or
not really, actually. I was kind of run through this thing pretty quickly by these guys, and I sort of settled into using my shield. And you see, I switched over to hammer and shield now.
That gives you access to a different ability.
So my 1 and 2 and 3 abilities are based on my hammer, which are kind of defensive and about kind of stacking up buffs on my allies. I think the hammer, and then my 4 and 5 are my shield abilities, which allow me to bash enemies and deflect damage, and also put down a massive shield that affects my entire group.
Okay. So much more supportive than your double-handed sword.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically specialising in being the person who doesn't fall over. Or maybe falls over a little bit, but just like go back up straight away because of the buff.
Yeah. So, how easy is it to switch between those? Do you have 2 weapon sets?
You have 2 weapon sets. It depends on your character. Engineers don't. But it's I think it's the tilde key, which allows you to instantly switch between weapons, and there's a perfunctory cooldown. Here we're fighting these spell blossoms, which do huge amounts of damage to you if you don't take them out first.
Yeah.
I think the idea is that people will kind of learn these techniques as they go through the dungeon and figure out kind of what order to do this stuff in. So when we were in the office doing this, the guys actually yelled at me at that point. Just jump over there. Whack them down.
There's a lot of going on in Guild Wars 2 fights and stuff. There's a lot of effects going on. Is it hard to track who's being attacked?
They have. I mean, they told me recently they have a system that actually scales the stuff dynamically.
Oh, okay.
So you will only, especially it's more apparent in big PvP fights, but you will mostly only see the particle effects that affect you.
Oh, okay.
There's still a lot to track, obviously, but I think at that point it becomes sort of reasonable that there's not a lot of irrelevant data. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot being thrown at you, but.
So let's say like a guy across the other side of the fight is throwing a fireball, you might not necessarily see that fireball.
Or it might be smaller.
Okay.
If it's not coming to you directly.
Yeah.
So this is the first boss, and this is about as far as we can show in this dungeon, unfortunately. But this Spider Queen is all about kind of handling these minions, which are being mopped up really effectively by our elementalist. You see a big patch of fire and that sort of flame
that just kills them as they come out, I guess.
Yeah. Where I'm sort of, I guess, moving into a tanking role, like you were talking about people playing roles, but I've just decided to hold this person here and constantly remove conditions for myself. This dungeon is really about being able to deal with poison. Like, almost every enemy in this dungeon can poison you quite badly, and therefore, like, the Guardian's ability to kind of shrug off status effects, or like what I mentioned earlier, the combos between different classes can be really, really useful.
Yeah. You played some of the lower level dungeons as well. How does the level 50 dungeon compare to those in terms of complexity and difficulty?
This is story mode. Story mode is kind of intended to be run through fairly easily by a pickup group.
Okay.
Explorable, I didn't end up playing this dungeon in Explorable, but Ascalonian Catacombs, which people who played the beta will, some of them will have played, does scale, like, get dramatically harder when you go into Explorable. And I saw a little bit of this sort of where they showed me where the hooks were for Explorable mode. So things that might be walled off in this can branch off and become explorable wings of the dungeon. In terms of how it compared, I actually found that this was about as hard as Ascalonian Catacombs, given the level difference. Like, it was still, it took about the same amount of time. There were some challenges later on that required a bit more thought, and we were lucky that we had a team that was very experienced. Yeah, and I guess both times I've played through these, I've had teams with me that knew what they were doing. it is designed that you kind of will get through it the first time to see the story, see these cutscenes like the one we're about to get.
Yeah.
And then when you go through them subsequently, it's about kind of really trying to figure out these encounters and trying to do them successfully. I was told actually that the hardest stuff in the game, the level 80 dungeons, there are very, very few people at ArenaNet who have beaten them yet.
Oh wow.
And even then they've had a hard time with it.
Okay.
They made the interesting point that they kind of have to build all this stuff to be significantly harder than they can do
Yes.
in order for the players to be able to
They expect the players to
Yeah.
exceed their
Well, I mean, you can imagine they are only, 50 people.
Yeah.
You're going to throw thousands of people at it.
Someone's gonna-
Yeah.
Well, taking this guy out.
So, we've got another cutscene coming.
Just as we were when you abandoned.
I like new places.
Just go for the Chamber of Envy.
Expected this from Ritlock, but not from you.
I really love that chamber.
Not
Wish it was mine.
your schemes, and you insult me. Done. Finish this on your own.
And another member of Destiny's Edge
Ah,
runs away.
Just hate each other.
Yeah, they do. Apparently, they've all got to come together at the end in a kind of bringing the band back together moment
Yeah.
of victory. But hey,
Hello, dear heart. I see your friends have already abandoned you. How does it feel?
Fowler, it is time to end this madness.
The madness is yours. You rely on others when you know you belong here. With me.
I've moved on.
We shall see, dear heart. We shall see. 3 of my champions are here. I look forward to seeing how you and your remaining allies fare against them.
and unfortunately, that's about as far as we can show you in this dungeon.
But I'm guessing you fight all those.
We do fight all 3 champions.
Who'd have thought?
Interestingly, though, that's the same structure as Ascalonian Catacombs, but there are
Ah.
also 3 bosses. So it'll be interesting to see if that's the kind of structure they roll out across the board.
Yeah.
Risky strategy here of opening both boxes at once and losing.
Yeah, you got both mobs.
Yeah,
Damn it.
indeed. Normally not a good idea to try and open those things in the middle of fights, but when you roll with QA guys, you do, yeah, you do what you like. So yeah, and here we go. Now I'm about to finish the show, so thank you for watching, and keep checking PCGamer.com for the rest of Guild Wars 2 week.
Absolutely.
Bye!
Goodbye.
Destroy those spell blossoms before they tear us apart.